As an adult and community learning team, we are very much around meeting the needs of a wide community. We have a lot of outreach work and we are very good at widening participation. The project came out of an Ofsted inspection that we had in June last year, where it became evident to us as a service that there were a number of factors that, although we'd worked on a lot of significant improvement, we hadn't been able to evidence some parts of that, and one of those was equality, diversity and inclusion.
We wanted to put an action plan together, which was part of the rationale, to look at where it actually was identified and actually close those gaps and provide resources for tutors and staff. We also looked at OTLs, which is observation of teaching and learning, where it was identified that we weren't showing enough equality and diversity, whether it was in the scheme of work or the actual lesson plan itself.
It was an area of work that we needed to undertake as a team, and our line manager Sarah thought it was a good way to introduce professional dialogue and introduce us as a team at a level of taking projects forward independently for the service.
Mandy, thanks for coming along, and in order so that we can have a review of where we're at with the Equality and Diversity Action Plan. In particular, I was keen if we could have a discussion around where we are with the learner survey, because that was one of the big actions that was on there. Professional dialogue is used to actually ensure that we are aware of what the project is and what it's about and what they're doing, what the outcomes are, how they're going to get there and how we can measure it. So Mandy, you're thinking about the learner survey. What do we feel that we want to do with the learner survey in terms of the results and in terms of the feedback? Where will it fit into the overall action plan?
It fits in because it's the first time that we've actually looked specifically at equality and diversity from the perspective of the learner. We do lots of surveys within the service at various stages of teaching and learning, but we've never had specific questions around equality and diversity from the learner's point of view. That will hopefully give us a structure for a survey moving forwards that we can reuse. It will give us some benchmarking data, and it means that we can actually look at the impact of this project moving forwards by asking the same questions to different groups as we move forwards.
I think quite early on in the initial stages of the project, one of the things that they found very difficult was to actually work together in terms of a real management team. And that's something they hadn't done before, and it's something that was very much in my mind as to why we did this project.
The successes and challenges that emerged in the early days of the project included the fact that we had too big an action plan to start with. It was quite unwieldy, it was quite wide-ranging, and it was only when we started trying to achieve the actions, we realised we had too much there that was unachievable in the timescales provided.
It was a good point, the review, because it was not thinking then about the project itself, but thinking about that dialogue and what we wanted to achieve. So it helped us really get back on track and reorganise ourselves.
We took the outcomes from the actual mandate and looked at it against the Equality and Diversity Action Plan and also our Quality Improvement Plan, and reconformed a different type of action plan, which was actually where everybody then took ownership of the different outcomes, and it became more informed and it was more achievable at that point.
The improvement team are very, very different now from how they were at the beginning.
The empowerment style we're using within the improvement team has enabled us as programme managers not purely to think about our own areas, but to be able to share a project across all the areas and all input our own experience and knowledge, and think about things that we hadn't thought about before or from another person's perspective.
The lessons I've learned personally is actually to allow the managers to undertake a complete project on their own. I was very confident that they could do it, but as managers, they're very busy people. They often work in isolation. And so one of the biggest challenges for them and for me was around seeing them work together as a management team. And I actually had to then stand back. So the lesson I've probably learned is trust them a bit more.
Most team members, curriculum managers and tutors were aware from the Ofsted inspection that it was an area that needed development. We've tried to involve managers and tutors throughout the action planning process to ensure that they're involved in identifying good practice, sharing schemes of work, etc. And everybody does seem to be involved in the process.
The other kind of impacts I'd expect to see from this project going forward are that a real embedded equality, diversity and inclusion within the whole of the services teaching and learning. We're already very good at this, but actually we can do so much more, and in fact the outcomes for learners will be so much greater. To another learner provider, in thinking about introducing professional dialogue, I would say it's something that's really, really valuable to them. Be well worth them doing it. And if they already do it, then I would say they need to embed it, because the outcomes we've seen where we've embedded it have been significant. So if they were to do that, they would be able to make improvement in the management team, in the effectiveness of what they do, and ultimately they'd be able to improve their outcomes for learners.